Dr. Lou,
Ah,
you may need to mute when others are talking to
okay,
avoid feedback.
okay. All righty. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's webinar. My name is Dr. Lee Jensen, and this is the weekly get-together of the INE Network, Inspiration and Encouragement Network. We've been cooperative, artistic cooperative now for over 30 years. And the whole idea of being able to figure out how to make something really great and then do a better job of marketing it and business applications is the purpose of the whole INE network thing. And I'm struggling a lot with trying to make sure that we stay on schedule with tonight's show is all about personal branding. And my computer's having some overload problems, so I'm hoping that things will work out here. As I get ready to move into the show, I got to get my screen share going, and we'll launch it. I'm hoping this works better with PowerPoint, so we'll see how this goes. This series that I do, I call my master's series, my master's program, because as you move into a 7-step program from an amateur to a master of something, the whole concept of our INE network is to do well at both sides of the coin, learning to do an incredibly good piece of work and then doing really well in the marketplace, trading. And most artists and artistic creative types are good at one or the other, and they're taught not to go after both. And I'm just going, what a foolish position to be really good as an artist and then really bad as a business person. It just doesn't work well. And I think it's the reason that most artists starve is because they don't know a decent degree of both. So as we take on personal branding, this whole concept is something that I think you need to really pay attention to is the discovery of your talent, the development of the talent, the mastery of something, and then learn how to share it. I've had Aim Your Life in my own life for a very long time, and it's a part of the series that I think makes so much sense is that if you can aim the rest of your days, you got a whole lot better chance of having something work out in your favor than if you just get up every morning and take whatever shows up. In the process of marketing and doing your business and doing well, there are 3 key rules in marketing, and the first one is brand recognition, and the second is brand recognition, and the third is brand recognition. I wanted to introduce something really exciting happened today. I was invited by Google to join their exclusive creative development group, and it only comes by invitation, and I've made my application, so now we'll see if I actually get accepted. But I was freaked out, to say the least. To be able to keep doing what I do and enhance the visibility of the INE network is my whole goal. And so these kind of moments and opportunities show up from really unusual ways and unusual directions and unusual pathways. But what's happening is, as a group, we're getting more and more and more visibility. So now what? I think the goal is to go after even more. And in the process of helping each other get that visibility and that exposure, we learn better together than we do individually, I think. This is one of the great books that I've ever read. Tom Peters is considered in our generation probably the best business counsel there is, business coach. And he came up with the concept of the personal brand. There's no doubt in the great age of the brand. We're in the great age of the brand. And he's the one that really started nudging this. And this is years ago. And in the whole time that we've been a network, I think it's so significant because we started before there was any social media. We started before there was even internet. And so now, I mean, how can you play on social media and not be considering your personal brand? Even when you don't have a brand and you just let it evolve by accident, you still are branding yourself. And I think, why in the world would you let that happen by accident instead of trying to put it into a position where it's working for you? Linda Taylor's who I watch very carefully. These are the Affleck Duck Girls. And their book is, Bang, is called How to Be Heard in a Noisy World. And when you begin to see that people that can make $1 billion a year playing with personal branding, boys and girls, this is something we really ought to give more attention to. The whole problem in the marketplace is that every human being gets hit with 3,000 business buying decisions a day. It's probably 4,000 now. I've had that number for a long time. 4,000 business buying decisions a day. So the real dilemma is being seen and recognized and pay attention to you. This is the paradox of choice. I've talked about it often in my business books of choice. This was a huge seller. And what he basically did as his university research project was to evaluate the fact that what is happening in the marketplace now is there's so much choice, people are deciding not to decide. So all traditional marketing efforts are not working as well as they used to. And so understanding how a brand actually works. Why did this work in its old days? And why does it have such impact now? If you can sense a little bit that if you've got your herd is lost or have wandered off, or the goal is to keep the herd somewhat together, if you've got an extremely distinctive thing to look at and see quickly and easily, even at a distance, then you've got the odds of keeping it together and hanging on to your value go way up. And it still works exactly the same way. So hopefully tonight you'll learn something and we'll get it started. I keep talking about it all the time because we've covered upscale marketing and we've covered pricing. We've covered the business plan. We're doing everything that a good, well-run little business really ought to know something about and do. And I'm praying that you'll jump on the personal brand revolution. It really is something you all need to spend more time with and pay more attention to. It's one thing to play on social media, and it's another thing to make a mark and begin to have it work for you instead of kind of against you. This "thou shalt market thyself" banner is always quite an issue because most of us were raised to not pat yourself on the back. It's just such an ingrained, deeply ingrained idea that most people tend to avoid it. And I'm going, well, if you don't, who in the world is going to? And if you love what you're doing, then why in the world wouldn't you lean into it a little bit? Let's beat the drum and wave the flag and see if we can't turn that into a personal brand, okay? It involves all of these concepts. Everything that's written in here and put in here is based on branding. And if you can see, you know the brands, we all are familiar with how freaking powerful when Steve Jobs landed on this brand for Apple. I don't know how you can do it any better than that, gang. That's just about as good. I don't know who came up with the bite in it, but whoever did that was just flat brilliant. And this brand's been in our life for how many years? Oh my gosh, forever. Forever. And I don't think there's a more dominant brand than that one. When we were in Orlando, Disney World, and saw that first time, even the telephone power poles are Mickey Mouse. I just couldn't get over. Disney does not miss a trick, do they? So the idea is we're trying to brand your imagination. We're trying to capture other people's attention and touch their imagination in a way that they do not forget us. They remember from then on one exposure, and they So, I mean, you can see this once, and then the next time you see it again, you're going to know, I've seen that. That's always a high contrast image because it's very quick to recognize it. Okay. When I saw this, it just tickled me clear to my toes, because talk about a way to have a title or a presentation of something to hang your brand on. I just love it. I've had it in my life for quite a long time. So grab something to write and scribble on, and keep a couple of notes and capture your threads of ideas, your whispers tonight and next week and the week after. These next 3 shows are the theory of it tonight, the start of it next week, and then putting it into use the 3rd week, okay? And the whole trick's here to do it by design. You just don't leave this up to magic. If you're going to build a house, the number one thing you start with is a foundation. The construction of the foundation determines the overall success of the construction of the home. And a brand is very similar to that same. It's the foundation of all the other business that you're likely to do. It needs to be recognizable, identifiable, universal. It needs to be memorable and easy to recall. It must be focused and targeted. It needs to be honest and just exude integrity and trust and perception. The impact of visibility, the design and composition are extremely important. The individual and unique and specific side of it is also important. But I think the really important elements of the whole personal brand are this human connection and credibility factor now. Now that's a mouthful. That's just a horrendous pile of information that then begins to affect and involve your personal brand. From doing and sitting down with me tonight, if you're going to take this hour, I would really like you to try and stretch your thinking. Look at it from the other end in mind and try and look at it bigger. Think bigger. Don't build a house when what you're really after is some kind of a mistake, okay? When we're coming up with something really new and changing and improving our own situation, every one of you watching tonight with me have likely been involved with Lou Jensen and ID Network and Profit Lobbies for years. But the odds of you having improved your personal brand is a little slim. Because once we gotta get it in place, we say, oh, well, I'm done. I've done it. I don't need to hit this much anymore. I'm thinking, how can you, if the marketplace is a moving target, then should not you constantly be sharpening the saw? I hope that's what will happen, and I hope you'll come at this tonight with a degree of extraordinary thinking rather than ordinary. Look at it from a different perspective to say, am I this egg and this egg, or am I this egg? There's some uniqueness that needs to be presented to the marketplace. If you find ideas that you like and then you turn them into a dream and then you persist and persist and persist, you're likely to come up with one idea after another idea after another idea that will really begin to define your career. When I came up with the Forever Letter angle, I remember even to this day all the moments that happened in the early stages of creating the concept. But every time I share a Forever Letter idea, and I usually 2 or 3 times a week, it shows up. I've got something that's deadly to drop into the marketplace. Because if I put someone's etched words of love and affection, wedding vows, or a 4-year-old's letter to grandma, or a grandma's letter to a 4-year-old on a piece of crystal form, we're talking about one of the better gifts on the planet. But Spielberg's done the same thing. To be able to take their concepts and turn their movies and to turn them from dreams to ideas. When I see Field of Dreams, I see all these individual concepts that fit with what I want to pay attention to. And when you see it, I mean, how many years have we been watching this brand? That same brand, they've used it once they came up with it. How many years have you been seeing Cadillac, Chevy, and Honda? And Superman. If you've been seeing all this stuff, and then you say, well, what I want most is to have my own name and reputation grow, then obviously personal branding is huge. If you get me point 2.0 and you start looking at these 4 steps for building a future, look right there. This guy is the personal branding guru. And this is the whole concept. It's to have your individual recognition instead of being lost in the shuffle of too much of humanity. You're going after your own identification. Now, when I saw the Apple one, I got to go back and find that Apple one somewhere. One day we were coming off the airplane in New York in LaGuardia, and on the wall was a bunch of apples and one chrome apple put right in the middle of the picture. And the second I saw that, I went, oh, I could do that with eggs. So I carved an egg and put it in the middle, and I remember the day we shot this. We spent all day long trying to get the picture. But it's a good one. It says everything I want to say. What yet lies within, okay? What's in your past and what's in your future pales in comparison to what yet lies within. When I see other brands and other identification that promote brands, I'm all over it. I save these in my working journal. If it's appealing to me and I think they've done this continuous thread and then did this logo and then wrapped it off over here. That's a way of sewing it from the beginning to the end with this individual video. And I watch for these kinds of things. Discovery Channel has, look at their logo and their brand. This is their science section. Kofu is a graphic designer background. It's not that I don't understand the logic behind print design. It's that things have changed, and now every time I see a logo, it's usually in some form of moving media. So there's no reason to have print design be the foundation of logos anymore. Not surprisingly, this stuff has drawn some critics, but that's okay with Kofu. People are polarized about his network branding thing and whether it's the future, and that's what makes it worthwhile, he says. It's fun to kind of pull out at those strings and stir people up. You're supposed to evoke emotions with your personal brand. That's what makes it so rememberable. So as you're starting to see the kind of things that come up, and then I'm trying to play with the long-term concept of this taking on the marketplace together as artists instead of trying to do it all so alone. This whole idea of a circle of Discovery Studios seems to me to be extremely appropriate. You can go fishing alone, but it's really smart to go fishing together. Most of you who are on the show in the green room with me tonight know this concept because Oscar Mayer is the first brand ever. He was the meat maker, sausage maker in Chicago, and they started to compete with him because he had the best sausage, and he tried to figure out a way to separate himself from all the other offerings. And he's the one that came up with the Oscar Mayer brand. The whole idea of branding is to repeat your customer relationship and make it easier. The whole problem of small businesses figuring out how to sell something to somebody once and then don't take advantage of the fact that it'll be really a lot easier to sell them something again. And if you plug that into the equation, Lance Turner, our good friend of the network who passed away a couple of years ago, is the inventor of Smokey Bear. And then he came up with the most significant sentence, the most recognizable sentence in the world is, only you can prevent forest fires. And he said wildfires. Now, he didn't do it just once, he did it again. And he came up with Charlie Sunkist Tuna, commercial icon. And to have two of them in your life is just, to me, every time I sit down with this guy, I just praise the water he walked on because he just had such a creative slant on everything. And Lance would just pray that you would pay attention to this designing of what you're doing and presenting rather than just throwing mud on the wall. When Craig first became friends with Lance, I think it was such a profound experience for all of us because Lance would not pull the punches. If he thought you were headed in the wrong direction, you were going to get an earful. And sometimes it was hard to be around Lance because that's his approach. But if you just begin to sense what the purpose of it is, the reason to play on social media with a personal brand now is it's a focused version of who you want to become and who you most want to trade with. So if you go, like Covey says, to begin with the end in mind, and you begin to think about where in the world would I dream that my life might end up, okay? And for at least 50 years now, I have wanted to end up kind of where Elbert Hubbard did. Elbert Hubbard made such a dent in the arts and crafts movement at the time. And he wrote Message to Garcia that has sold now 38 million copies. And those kinds of concepts to me are so, I don't know how you leave this world in better shape than what Elbert Hubbard did. And when I see that in someone else, then what I try and do is pull their individual success into what I'm trying to consider for my own brand. My favorite images, my favorite stories, and my favorite travels, you mix that whole thing together to where it begins to be the evolution of you. There's Dr. Steve, Dr. Phil, and Dr. Wayne, and now there's Dr. Lou, and I'm the only one with hair. I love to nudge that one a little bit because it helps me to be a little more rememberable. The change in my life was most significant because of the profitable hobby that I started. All I wanted was to have something to take off the pressure of being a dentist, because it's a tough job to drill people's teeth and deal with all the stress and strain of a dentist practice every day. And so my hobby dropped into my life, and then it very quickly became a profitable hobby. And I began to wonder, I wonder if my profitable hobby could actually outdo my dental income. Now, I think you can brand anything. And if you're going to trade in the marketplace, it's really helpful if you do that. At most of the gun shows, I had a guy next to me here in the Utah area. I called him the rubber gun guy. And I was an engraving guy, and he's a rubber gun guy. So he sold quite a few of these. They were a rapid fire. You could put multiple rubbers into the gun, elastics, and then they would shoot in rapid fire. And then he came up with this gun, got this little targeting kind of thing that he could put together. And then he had a set. You could get all three. So he'd done quite a bit with the concept. He really had. But he never branded it, and he never did realize. I was right next to him, so what I told him to do is you tell them if they buy the gun today, I'll put a name on here for whoever they want for free. Now, I don't know how much you think that I would nudge his brand and his concept by offering the engraving for free, but you have no idea how many more we sold because of that. They got something free, and it was a slam dunk, and it helped me sell tools because people were watching me actually do it. So I learned to do bubble lettering right here. And I just banged it out constantly. I've bragged about Jeannie for years and years and years. She won, years ago when she was young and just starting out, she won Oprah Winfrey's Female Entrepreneur of the Year award. She got it to about $15 million a year in sales. She's now sold her company and she's retired. And her whole concept was high-end personalization. And instead of doing this for $1.50, her stuff is $600 and $700 and $800 and $900. One time we were in the Grand Hotel in Michigan, and you go into any high-end jewelry store, Jeannie's stuff was there. And all it was this unbelievable level of personalization. Her designing was very simple. and then she would add all these possible quotes, and then you could create your own. So it was a piece of jewelry that is actually a forever letter. Now, when you can see that someone else has done it, and then you swing that back into your own life and begin to say, well, what's here? How can I turn something that they're doing into something that I can do? And the way to do it is to start small. Give it a try. Try and see if there isn't something that you couldn't create on a very simple basis like this, and then work to a little bit more aggressive kind of personalization, and then eventually end up here. It's so fun to have watched her career. She was just so aggressive with every effort she made, and yet when you see what she started and her simpleness of her ideas and concepts, we can all take some lessons in pricing from this girl. Let's take a look at your business for a second. You got into Barney's pretty early in your career. This is an interview she had. That's huge. What was that like? It was crazy. I was really lucky, but really I had no idea what I was doing. I had to learn how to do invoices. I had to learn what a collection was. I was definitely a trial by fire, but people were just incredibly helpful all along the way, and I've learned every day. The last 20 years I've been in business, and now it's 40 years. So when I started, so did she. And all you have to realize is that that's how it always works. It's no question that life is tough, but the thing to do is if somebody else can do it, then so can you. And as we learn to do it together, I hope what we do is begin to light that personal passion prescription. If you haven't heard about our 7 steps from amateur to master, please interact with Cam at the company, and let's get you set up so that you're gradually moving from where you are here to right there on the front end. You go from an amateur to an apprentice, from an apprentice to a technician, technician to artisan, artisan to professional. Right here, you're making money doing your work. And I hope this is the transition from whatever you're doing as a job now to this new business effort that you're making. Then what we're going to do is package and begin to trade and teach others how to do what you've learned how to do. And the mastery level is when we start stepping on the world stage. I've presented this spring, since January, 12 hours on small business trade wins. I've done 52 cards of the trading game, and then I do an upscale marketing course, and then I've got yet now to do the ABC factors of most small businesses. Now, this kind of effort on the business side of a hobby will make a difference for you. The problem is all of you love doing the hobby, but you don't like putting in the time and the effort to learn the skills of the business side. So how many hours have you invested in one or the other? And how much better job of your business are you this year than you were, I hope, against last year? So when we have this business plan in place now, if you know how to build a business plan, and you've gone through that with me, that effort is the #1 thing that contributes to the success of small business, is doing the actual business plan. And this is the nemesis for every right-brained person on the planet. I can't focus on anything long enough to actually get it done. So if you have any clue what you're going to do with these last few precious, wonderful years, maybe you ought to get a bit of the plan, okay? And the reason for doing the plan and building his brand here is to guide your directions and present the best possible you into the economy. Instead of a shotgun or an accident, what we're going to do is try and turn it into an absolute laser effort. It is a way of thinking to gradually end up where we are. The purpose of a brand is to target the activity in the marketplace. We want the lightning to strike right here instead of over here. When you have a really strong personal brand, when Dawson went after this, he's extremely good at his art, but he's extremely good at his personal branding as well. You almost can't miss when you're in the economy and an art show. You know that it's a Dawson Cohen piece. And he's just absolutely intense about the development of every aspect of every piece of art. Talk about mastery. But so is Gary Price. Gary's working on the Statue of Responsibility now. On the East Coast, we have the Statue of Liberty. We're going to have the Statue of Responsibility on the West Coast, and they're both going to be on islands. It's going to be the bookends of liberty. And it's so fun to watch him because he's extremely good at his sculpting, but he's very, very good at his own business managing. When Jack Benny got started, the older generation remembers that he carried his violin around with him. Never did you catch him without his violin, because it was his brand. Now, one of the things that made it easier for me to kind of understand this was a story about an early primitive gathering person who was dying. He lost his group of people to protect him, and he was on his own. And he tried to catch fish in the stream and couldn't. So he just went into a cave and laid down and got ready to die. And as he was looking on the walls of the cave, he saw a forked spear as one of the petroglyphs. And the second he saw this image, he said, "Oh, I know how to catch that fish after all." And so this is kind of how branding works, is you want to have this same kind of application so that you begin to say, well, this is what happened to me. I did take the path less traveled, but what I really wanted is to go where no one had gone before and leave a path. When I started putting together the opportunity intersection and realizing that every great mariner, every great sailor, sea captain, started out with a dream, then they made a map and a plan, then they prepared and gathered and got ready to go. Then they launched. But after they launched, they kept track of their directions and did a journaling process to measure their progress. Then they were really good at solving problems, which is what all business is solving problems. And then they turned around and learned how to invest and share in the future. To me, these 7 steps are exactly the same process that you will take as well. We're going to try and develop a better brand that's called you. It's further defined as the creation of an asset that pertains to a particular person. This includes, but is not limited to, the body, the clothing, the appearance, the knowledge, everything leading to an indelible impression that is uniquely distinguishable. The term is thought to have been first used and discussed by Tom Peters, the guy I talked about and wrote that book. When you're trying to come up with your brand, not always does it show up easily. So if you know much about my imagination committee, what I try and do is literally ask eternity for help. It's so important. You want a strong brand to hit you, and they come as whispers. These gentle little moments will just pull you in the direction that you really ought to go. So if you come ahead and try and develop the side of, instead of making a gaming proposition, you're going to do it by design. I'm not content with any road will do. You want to point it in the direction that you want it to go, and then stay with that. Okay, working in the contents of the ultra famous brands like Dior and Vuitton, creative spirits are always going to feel reined in. It's important that they feel free to develop ideas, and rather than detracting from the principle, it will actually reinforce it. I think of money invested in a brand development as venture capital. It's a big investment, but compared to the returns, it is nothing. I've not seen one thing in the economy that has changed since social media has jumped onto it. If anything, it's more important now than it has ever been. It's like a reputation for a company, a reputation for a person. A reputation is earned by trying to do hard things well. Listen, trying to do hard things well, and you come up with Amazon. Brand that captures your mind gains behavior, and the brand that captures your heart gains commitment. Oh, I like that. That's a dynamite quote. So can you brand yourself, or are you going to let the marketplace do it for you? I've watched this in so many artistic circumstances, it makes me sick. I just can't believe they don't understand enough to build a bit of a brand so you can direct the directions and pathway you're headed instead of just having it evolve. It makes no sense to have it happen by an accident. If you can make it hit right here most of the time, that's the whole idea. So it becomes a bit of a lightning rod. And in this first step, we're going to talk about the theory and the value and the 4 parts. But then next time, we're going to talk about fleshing out of your brand. The tactics help you find the best you and getting beyond the jack of all trades. The last step will be the process of perfection and then starting your own fire in the marketplace. So if you look at that from that concept and then consider what will most grab the attention and help your customer remember you and encourage them to purchase and collect your work. Shouldn't this be huge for an artist? How could you do this without having some attention to the brand? And if you remember that it's a never-ending process, you can't just put it down one time and expect that, well, I've done it and that's all there is. It is an evolutionary effort as well. So how do I get started? Number one, stick with those that are climbing the same mountain that you're going after, okay? It is for sure going to be an uphill task, and there's not something someone else can do for you, and you can change the pathway, but each time you shift the gears of your brand, you lose the time that you've already invested. So what you do is build on one concept to the next concept to the next concept to the next concept. So you gradually build your reputation in the marketplace. Success is not measured by what a person accomplishes, but by the opposition they've encountered and the courage with which they have maintained the struggle against overwhelming odds. So you can't tell me it's too much work. The master of anything will be very familiar with this concept. Must be one of commitment and dedication, not convenience. If it's just convenient, you won't do it. My whole effort with the Masters program is to help us climb together and succeed in peak performance, but then to also learn how to get paid really well for the trade that you're pulling off in the economy. So before next week's session, this homework assignment tonight is to start looking again or building your individual brand. If you've never done it, please make this your decision tonight. One of the most dedicated, determined decisions of your whole life is to go into the marketplace and play more with a defined brand than just accidentally. And then once we get it done, we're going to learn how to use it, okay? Whenever you trade anything, it's better to sit down and trade, or is it better to be somewhat ahead of the game? Oh, I hope there's no question anymore. Some artists who do really poorly in the market generally don't understand what they don't know about the process of business trading. They just sit down and give it a go. And unless you've got your last hand out, if you had this will help you just initially begin to chew on this. If it was last handout you could ever give, okay, you're going to hand out a card to 1,000 people. What would you most want to say on it? And the more succinct and the more powerful you can make it, the better it's going to work, okay? Now that's just where you start. Then you push that concept even further. What if whatever you're going to say would be around to influence people from now on? That's a kind of an involved idea, isn't it? What if somebody bumps into your brand 1,000 years from now and it influences their life? How cool is that? If you mix in a little Mark Twain, if you hold a cat by the tail, you learn things you can't learn any other way. I'm trying to get your attention. I'm trying to have you realize how important this concept we're talking about tonight. Most artistic types try and screw in with a little tiny, flimsy, underdeveloped screwdriver. It's just, you cannot make it work, okay? And the more you understand the theory, the better you'll do with the building of the image, and then you allow yourself to begin to grow. If you had the opportunity to be invited on the Oprah Winfrey or Martha Stewart show, and you weren't prepared for that presentation, you'd spend the rest of your life saying, oh, God, I wish I was more prepared. What we plant in the minds of people that we meet and relate with is up to us to guard and captivate. So how does it work? Who do we become? What we think about. If you know how it works, as far as we know to this, I will want to tell you about a situation that parallels the human mind. Suppose a farmer has some land and it's good for land. The land gives the farmer a choice. He can plant in land whatever he chooses. The land doesn't care. It's up to the farmer to make that decision. We're comparing the human mind with the land because the mind, like the land, doesn't care what you plant in it. It will return what you plant, but it doesn't care what you plant. Now, let's say that the farmer has two seeds in his hand. One is a seed of corn, the other is a seed of nightshade, a deadly poison. He digs two little holes and plants both the corn and the nightshade. Waters takes care of both of them. Invariably, the land will return what was planted. It's as written in the Bible, as you sow, so shall you reap. Now remember, the land doesn't care. It will return poison as just as wonderful abundance as it will the corn. So up to the two plants, one corn, one poison, the human mind is far more fertile, even more incredible and mysterious than land. But it works the same way. It doesn't care what you plant, success or failure. Concrete, worthwhile goal, or confusion, misunderstanding, anxiety, fear, and so on. What we plant, it must return. Human mind is the last great unexplored continent on Earth. It contains riches beyond our wildest dreams. It will return anything you want to plant. Can you rate, I asked you to do this earlier this year, can you rate your personal confidence now? Are you hovering in that 8, 9, 10 category of personal confidence of generally if I'm going to do it, it will most likely work out? Or are you still really struggling with personal confidence? Is that something a personal brand can help build? It's going to really interfere with your ability to plant worthwhile seeds if you don't have that personal individual confidence. If we don't know enough about what we're trying to accomplish, we need to get somebody to help us. Well-off patrons will lean into your life and help you even more if they begin to sense that you are the next undiscovered great talent. This has helped me more than any other concept in my own individual career. Nothing else I've done has helped me any more than that. In the world, it's an altruistic seed, so if you don't know what altruistic is, I'm hoping that you'll remember me in a good light. It is idealism, high-mindedness, benevolence, loftiness, unselfishness, magnanimous, generous, noble, and big-hearted and unselfish. I brag about Ron a lot, but I can't brag about him enough. When I first put this show together, he had one of his retailers call him because he says, I've heard of your name. You're one of the best custom engravers in the area. So where did they hear of him from? And how good he must have been to have that passed on for him. Don't you see what this does? Your name and reputation begins to be your brand. Jose Valencia's done the exact same thing. You can't imagine how often he's having people bum into him and say, oh, I saw the stuff published about you, or I've heard about you, or I saw your work with somebody else. And it's because Jose has done this over and over and over and over. When one door closes, another door opens. But we so often look long and regretfully at the closed door that we do not see the ones which are in the process of opening. The whole purpose of branding, marketing, advertising, and public relations is to develop this selling path from the beginning to the part that makes the fish hook actually work. Because the brand is the fish hook. We're going to take you where you want to go, where you think most enjoyable, most productive, most long-lasting, most satisfying, and contributory. The whole process fishing is marketing. But what hook you toss out is what ends up making it work. Word-of-mouth advertising is ongoing paid, public, or non-personal announcements of a persuasive message by an identified sponsor. The non-personal presentation of promotion by a firm of its products to existing and potential customers is advertising. When Kelly first started playing with us, he really good at doing unique artwork, but he's just gotten better and better and better at going after his big fish client list, and eventually he nailed it. He got one of the wealthiest men in our area, and he builds custom furniture and pedestals for his hunting trophies. And it's that one major customer that has outfeathered the nest for Kelly, and it's exactly how I did it. One special client. He takes Kelly on hunting trips with him. They've been all over the world, and it's never, Kelly told me one time, he says, never ask me the price. Just do it. So if you'll think of branding as the total pie here, okay, it's not just this piece or this piece, it's the overall presentation. And you have to realize that the branding development is a process which takes time, but it will be a constant study. You're trying to brand everything that someone would do to facilitate the trade or the exchange. And that someone has to be you. So, I'm going to do it all. I'm going to try to learn how to consistently build the trust in you and your brand. It's just such a huge issue. I don't know how anybody online could play without considering a personal brand anymore. William Jay passed away a couple years ago. And when I was a kid, he said, son, if you can ever dream up a great life and then invest every day trying to make your dreams come true. I've lived that. I have lived that from the very, very beginning. This is the Lou Jensen story right there. I've been working this direction ever since I left dentistry. I've stayed on the selling path. I've made a horrendous investment in this direction. And my hope is that I can contribute to the world something that will long outlast my lifetime. When we get together, it is one of the most enjoyable experiences of my life to mix with these talent and these kind of capable, creative people. Dean Morrissey wrote a book about the Ship of Dreams. This was my Christmas present, and gave this to me a while back. And in here is this old guy dressed in his coat of many colors, and it's how I've envisioned my imaginary person self for years. When I find something like that, and then I begin to pull this concept into who I'm trying to become, all of a sudden personal branding will become more and more everything that touches your brain that says, oh man, do I like that. That's a whisper. That's exactly the stuff you should capture. Put it in one place, and then let's begin to see if we can't fashion it into something that eventually becomes our brand, your brand. And one day, a masterpiece. I don't see any reason for not playing with that idea from now on. All right, troops. Let's see. What do I have to do to stop? No, I don't want to stop that. There it is right there. Couldn't find it. Well, for some of you, this is a repeat. This is an old hash of concept that I've counted and I've counted and I've counted and I've counted. And I try and have you all remember the reason I'm talking and staying on the conversation is because I need it more than anybody. And if you'll do that same thing for yourself, to begin to realize that these repeating concepts are important for us individually to be able to finally see how it fits and why it works so well in the economy and why it's just overpowering social media. You can't get on anywhere with social media where a personal brand isn't discussed anymore. But I don't think most people really understand what it means or how it works, and they're definitely not doing it. So if I can send you off tonight with any hopeful takeaway here, either improve your brand or get it going, come up with a personal brand, and let's get it into the marketplace and the economy. Any comments by any of you? There's a lot here tonight. There's an awful lot to consider.
I have been listening to you for 29 years. And tonight, I think I have touched on something really incredible. And I'd like to talk to you about it later. So this has been fun for me.
You mean you finally listened to me?
Oh, Lou Denson. That wasn't nice. I listen to you all the time. Once in a while, though, I mean, I've listened to these over and over. How many times did I say when you were teaching, when we were teaching together, Lou, you've got to put this in a book. You've got to say this. You've got to do this. And that's where Opportunity Intersection came from. And it's just crazy. Every time I listen with Craig and with Keith and Kelly, all of them, I learn something every single time. And I learned something really fun tonight. I want to talk about it. Ron, hi, my friend.
Hi, Temery.
I saw that grin on your face. What are you thinking?
I was thinking, yeah, no, the thought went through my head that you listened to him, but do you follow the direction that he's given?
Well,
that's why I was
that's
laughing.
what, I'm really trying hard to work on that. I really am trying to work hard on that.
Oh, we all have to work on that. Yeah.
Yes, yes. But I loved your smile. Thank you. That was cute.
Usually it's the other way around. The man doesn't listen to what to what the wife says or the woman says. It's so for you to say I finally listened to you. It's like, okay, that's different.
I hear him all the time, and I get, it's funny, after all these years and going through all the training with him, I get something every single time. It is amazing, and I love it. But tonight, for some reason, it hit. I'm loving it. I'm just so excited I can hardly stand it.
Years ago, I think I was in high school, and the one teacher told us, he said, usually people have to hear something 7 times before they start to remember that it sinks in. And over the years that we've been doing this and listening, like you said, listening to Lou,
Yeah.
it's taking this long for some of the stuff to finally sink in. And we have to wait. Well, we don't have to, because we can watch the replays of the video, but it used to be before on YouTube that we had to wait a year before we got it again, and then okay, well, now you write it down again and you take more notes, and finally, okay, oh yeah, it starts to sink in, and then you find yourself starting to tell other people, oh yeah, Lou told me that 5 years ago, and but you're right, you hear something new all the time.
My mother had a favorite book, and I asked her one day when she was reading it, I said, Mother, how many times have you read that book? And she says, oh, so many that I cannot count. And I said, why do you keep reading it? And you probably will know the book. It is The Prophet by Kahlil Gibran. And she says, because every time I read it, I get something different out of it. And I was amazed at that, so I started reading it. But it's Lou and I've talked about a lot of this stuff, and he keeps telling me that I need to do this and I need to do that, and I think, yes, I do, but I don't know quite what it is yet. And all of a sudden tonight, it just hit like a ton of bricks, and I'm so excited. So it is. Yeah, after 29 years, Lou Jensen, I'm still listening to what you have to say.
You could have gone
And
all
loving
night
it.
and not said it
Loving
that way. Oh, I'm going to edit this.
So, I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, that you think that, maybe I have ignored you or I haven't paid attention, but it's the business of life and business of business, but tonight was just fun.
Good.
It was a really good show.
Isn't it how we all learn? I'm more embarrassed now at my age that I keep bumping into so many things I still don't know and don't have a clue about. I'll hear words and thoughts on the internet especially, and I'll go, God, I'm all this years old and I still don't know that.
Yeah.
I hope that's the human dilemma. I guess there's some out there that know everything or think they know everything, but most of us...
The older you get, the more you realize you don't know what you don't know.
What you don't know.
Yeah.
All right, troops. I've got a little scratch in my voice still tonight. I need to go get something down my throat and calm that down a little bit. So thank you for coming. I appreciate your participation. And the concept we're after is this personal branding thing. Don't let it escape your attention for a few weeks now. Really, now is a very good time to do something with it, and then we'll move it into social media more and more aggressive. I have a feeling that what I was asked by Google today to participate with is going to greatly elevate the exposure of everything we're playing with. And if we take on this new veterans program, I have a feeling that there's a whole bunch of things in eternity lining up to help us to actually go after solving the problem of so many suicides in the veterans program. It just should not be. 22 kids a day lose their lives through suicide coming from out of the VA. And I think our program will help them have a chance to hopefully overcome those circumstances and those odds. And there's been so much happening in the last little while, including this last 2 days, things that have just split the Red Sea. And if that's the case, then I'm going to call out and ask all of you to help in every way we can to see if we can't be the organization that begins to turn the tide and that number begins to come down instead of continuing to climb.
I had a chance to talk about this with Greg. Greg and his wife Sharon came by today and had a wonderful visit. They've been with us for a long time, and they're from Oregon. And I got to talk to him about this. And he was really excited. Everybody, that when we playing this out, Lou, this is so exciting. I can hardly wait.
And if it turns out to succeed, if we can help even
not if, when.
One person to avoid that disaster and that dilemma, I will be a very happy camper. But when it works well, then no one's got an answer for it. No one. It's just a dilemma that no one has even anything close to what we're playing with. And so out of our 35,000 customers, we're going to need everyone's help to pull this off. Okay, gang. Thank you much. I will catch you later. Appreciate you showing up. Do your homework now, okay? You got an assignment. Don't not dig into that. We'll see you later.
Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.